Good morning, class. Welcome to Homeroom with Unc and Market Monk.
Good morning, P. How's your week?
It was good. Probably my lightest week in a while, just for activity overall. Then just had a big home run with Lulu. So just just that don't really trust a lot of setups, but still adding and doing pretty well and materials and oil is kind of where I'm at right now, and then adding some long term stuff here and there. But yeah, just that 3-2 market, just not going to let it. I'm not going to, get all this analysis about it, see it work out, and then overtrade conditions I just said were shitty. You know what I mean? So I'm just kind of like backing off a bit while things play out.
Yeah, it wasn't a horrible week, I guess, overall. The minor's still good for me. News plays, Wolf and Lunar, um, range on regular stuff that we talked about, like Laser and Dollar Tree. All pretty good trades. Um, Still trading close to the vest. I'm with you on that. But man, that Wolf, waking up to Wolf on Friday, talk about two steps
Yeah,
forward, one step back over here. Turned a okay week into kind of a meh week. Can't really predict that. Not much you can do about it when it happens. But just
yeah,
just stick to your plan, and sometimes you just gotta take an L. And so it was kind of a sour taste to end like that. Um,
yeah,
I noticed during the middle of the week though, the previous couple weeks, like you could let the first hour pan out. Pre-market high or pre-market low yesterday low would kind of consolidate there, and you could play that secondary move, and that wasn't really there last week. That gap up Monday to kind of bleed out after Wednesday was not for the faint at heart. So yeah, good week to be light for sure.
and the sort of the brutality of that move up is that it was all pre-market, right? So like your range up during the day was almost nothing for the
For the week.
for the option crowd. Right. Yeah. So so that yeah, that was that was pretty rough. And so, for me, it's hard to trade like, like something like VRT, like, big range has these down days like 8% or something like that. It's really hard to trade that kind of thing because it's not really around a pivot, right? And so I stick to like MSTR, um, low IV stuff, and just sort of do that. But it's yeah, I mean it's there's a lot of chase and puts going on too. Is kind of what I'm saying, and that doesn't really always work very well either, um, especially with options eating up theta and all that. People don't buy enough time. They want to turn $60 into 500 instead of 400 into 470. It should be a better way to do it. So I think even for the people who are going to flip bearish, and even though I do see some potential for some of these stocks to bleed out, people still find a way to lose, and you have to be careful about that too. You can't get smacked on the upside and then flip bearish and think that's going to work either.
Yeah, it's a just close to the vest really hits home in this market. At
Yeah,
least the way I trade. Again, I only trade the upside, so um, definitely more barren out there than if anyone that can play both directions. But one of the notes I had this week: greed and lazy are the worst two traits, and right now, if you have those two, you are just getting murdered. If you think it's
yeah,
business as usual, and you're looking for more constantly besides just taking the trade. Because a lot of things are backside trades, and we haven't had that in a while. I'm waiting for someone to say, "Well, what's a backside trade?" Well, it's just that downside relief that you're playing when things get not necessarily oversold, but just overextended to a side. And you have to be quick, and you have to be take the money in those situations, and it's it's definitely the cup fill market when you're trading like that. But if you think you caught a bottom and it's going to turn completely around, get the full move back or get back to the last high, I mean, you're going to eventually get a lower low, and you know, at that point, you're lucky if you get back to your entry on some things. So yeah, around levels are definitely better. At least on my end, when we're getting to levels, there's not a lot of range off those levels. So um, more range on
Yeah,
stuff that's getting oversold and getting the mid candle relief or just a little bit of relief on my end. But you got to know what you're trading in this market.
I mean, here's my quick example of that. On Wednesday, I said, end phase under 60 reload. Next day, pops up to 62.50. The share side, that's not that. I mean, that's all right, but options that really kind of crushed it. But then you can see like that isn't your entry to go to 70 right now. It's just it's just kind of bouncing around. So if you held options through this thing, you just got lucky, and hopefully you weren't stupid enough to do it again. It's because you just gotta get out, and um, it's probably going to go below 60 again. Even if it doesn't, I if this wants to reclaim like 64, and I see that option look and it sets back up, um, you can build a position in the mid 60s, try to test this pivot. Things start to turn around the sector, but we're just, I mean, not even there at all yet. It's just these quick bounces, and that basically is my whole thing is just to find where I can these small setups like that, and it's quick hitters. I said the other day, I'm like, medium swings are dead. A little bit of exaggeration. There are sectors where you can do that. I'm pretty much referring to option trades, a lot of tech stuff that you can't just really grab a monthly out of the money and hold it through all these moves up and down like that. So it's quick hitters, or you just build something long term. I've been on end phase a long time. I'm fine with an average in the 50s. Could possibly break down below that, absolutely, but their shares I'll just hold a long time, so I don't really care. So it's one or the other for me is sort of my approach. Like, this is going to work in the next 30 minutes, or I'm going to hold this thing for 1 to 5 years. And those two strategies are mainly what I'm after, with the exception being energy, gold and silver, a couple other things like that.
Yeah, I'm just looking for 5 to 10% range. That's about
Yeah.
it. In phase, I'm with you. That doesn't really work on the share side. Things like Dollar Tree, kind of a little more
Yeah.
effective with that. But TMC is the same this week. You get some news pop, you start taking money scale out. But I mean, that's just where we are. You have to stay active, in my opinion. I've said that the last couple weeks. Like, you got to stay in the game so when it turns around, you're ready. Um,
Yeah.
but you also got to not sit on your hands, but extra check or whatever you want to call it in this market. Or yeah, you're probably gonna take a few off the chin. It just is what it is right now, and um, the world's not helping us in general. Like, we haven't got a good news event. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, kind of here for a while. And I mentioned that when we talked spy candles um, on the weekly. Like, we're probably gonna get 3 or 4 here. Um, so anytime you get hopeful, you probably get smacked back down for the meantime,
Uh,
and just kind of what I see
yeah.
continuing for a little bit here.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I just said, like, people who don't understand or have any concept of 3-2 market, like, they're gonna post their big victory laps on the gap up overnight, and we found a bottom here, and then 2 days later we make a new low. I had I had asked you last week about uh there were stocks that were under the 200, and or had just recently reclaimed it, and I was like, so what if that turns into resistance, like on some of these names. Kind of what is what are your thoughts on that? And so for my end, the reason I asked that is that I noticed with several of them that look of the option flow changes when something's below the 200 and just sort of can't quite get it back. There just isn't that attempt to push it through, and they're not defending anything anymore. So like the sold puts drying up is the biggest thing that happens, and so to me, it seems like the algos kind of switched a bit. That it's lean sell on some of these stocks when get in that setup, and I'm thinking of like Nvidia and a couple others, but I guess just on the TA side, what how do you look at 200 turning into resistance, and what does it mean for you?
Well, I mean, you're still going to look for a historical level, depending on whether 200 is or something built in volume profile.
Okay.
For Nvidia, it's 105. I mean, that's what it
Yeah.
is. That we make it above the 118 is kind of. Let me pull a chart up. That we make it back above the 118 to me is usually where I get locked into. Hey, this might actually continue. um,
Right.
but I don't know. But I assume it's just an assumption that they also whoever the market makers don't make money the same way. They also have to switch their style up in the way they make money
Yeah.
under that pivot. And again, we talked about how that's the big money or the older traders that are managing a lot of money, how they live off those levels of 50 and the 200. So um, yeah, I think their style switches. You're not used to seeing that because we're normally not in this kind of market, or we haven't been in this kind of market for a while. Um, and it's a different read, just like it is on the share side. It's a different player. You're playing a different style, and fortunately, we had a pretty big window of that late 21, most of 22, some of 23 of just straight downside play, and I learned how to play that. So I mean, I got a rule book and a layout for that. But it's weathering the storm and not getting hopeful. And um, anyone on Twitter right now that's calling a bottom on any, I mean, I see like AMD and Nvidia twice a day, people calling bottoms on it, and it's just you got to separate the men from the boys then and understand that they're just pissing in the wind. Because you're
Yeah.
not going to be able to call the bottom like that. You're gonna be able to call the change in trend, but that's not in one candle, or it's usually you can't call the upside coming in on a downside candle. That's just strictly guessing. So just the market we're in right now. So to kind of go back to your 200 point, like it's a different set of rules for everybody, and you should also have them if you don't. Trying to trade how you trade upside in this market is just asking for it, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just yeah. So to me, just don't see. Like, I can see some bounces. I just don't see the follow through, and they're not positioned for that big follow through yet. Now what can happen is we get some kind of positive news that has some follow through, and then they'll reposition quickly and they'll just chase and whatever. So flow isn't like they always set up in the same way, but they're in effect not wanting to beat out a bunch of 1 to 3 month calls right now. They're just they're backing off of that, and they're backing off some of the the sold puts too. So they're kind of close to the vest as well, and so if you're going to trade like a whale, which I don't think you can't ever really fully do that. Nobody's got that kind of bankroll and resources. We're just hitching a ride here and there, but still, I mean, if they're kind of close to the vest, it's not really the time to be buying the dip and on a bunch of swings. I just don't think we're quite there. So yeah, I mean, I wish I had better news as far as that goes, but that's just kind of where we're at. It's better to acknowledge that.
Yeah, you gotta be real choosy. And again, I'd take profit a little bit early if you are trying to swing. Just that way you're protected on the downside. The entry comes back, at least you got one or two good trades. That kind of stuff pays off in this market, as opposed to just I got a position, I planted my flag, and I'm holding on for dear life. It's the sizing still doesn't matter if your entry comes back and we fall through it. So
Yeah.
you kind of got to just be a little more picky in this environment for me. Um, I wanted to say, at least on your side, I mean, uh, you can't. We are in downside, and we know that, and it's not as simple as just switch to puts from calls. That doesn't work either, I'm assuming. And share side, there's obviously you don't start shorting shares or selling shares. Um, it's a little more complicated than just left or right. Um, so yeah, I don't want people to get caught in that either. It's you have to just tighten up expectations, um, or be very picky with what you're trading. Like you could trade
Uh,
miners right now. You can just trade miners, but
yeah.
you got to understand that you're gonna get 15% is gonna be a pretty damn good trade.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just a quick rundown of how I do trade downside, and we saw. I mean, yeah, MSTR had kind of a kind of a nasty week, although it did had the big gap up and then it down. But I just I look for tests of pivots when I'm above a pivot and something starts to break down. Like I'm like, okay, so probably gonna on this 334 when didn't hold that. I'm like, okay, we're probably gonna test 317, and then I talk about this to it, not through it. And so what I mean by that is like, I'll enter a trade and with puts, and I'm pretty much looking to kind of get out on the way down and maybe keep one. And this isn't 20 contracts. It's usually like three. so um so I don't have some big position when I get down to 317, and then I'm like, okay, I'm either gonna, you know, try for a bounce, reload on the upside or whatever. And I even as I'm in this, I start to go to the smaller and smaller time frames. And then you saw like 317. Like if your inputs on this, which was these 2 days, and it kind of retested, you do get some pretty these bounces, right? And if you're in options that expire within a couple of weeks, this little zone right here doesn't look very big, but I mean that's a few $100s at least. So you don't really want that. So to it not through it means like, all right, so we're heading to this. I'm not going to let this bounce without just getting the F out of this thing. And then you just enter it again. You get the much bigger breakdown on Friday. This was a better day. Trade, the move to the pivot was faster. Here you can maybe kind of leave a runner. But the point is like, that's how I do the downside. I have to have that ladder there that I can see rather than just being like, well, let me give you one. Um, you know, well, chips are shit, so I'm just gonna just trade the downside on this one. You can see here like VRT, it had a big breakdown this past week, but like a lot of that was in this pre-market on Wednesday. And yes, you would have done fine. I have no setup here. It's all after the fact, like to say that oh this is going down. So I don't like that. I like to have some pivots and some lines, and I'm just extra careful with puts. To me, is just the way to be because I don't really like them or like to trade that way. But the fact is, it's there, and if you're going to trade options, it's a better setup. But you still have to be picky. Um, no worse feeling than chasing puts because psychologically, I'll stop my rant in a second. But psychologically, like you prefer the market to go up. You have shares in a bunch of things, so market does bounce. that's great, but oh shit, I'm in all these stupid puts, and now I'm trapped here. Um, that's not a good feeling. So I just encourage people to avoid that. Psychologically, it's just terrible. So quick hitters only for puts has always been my thing.
Yeah, I know it. Yeah. The what hits there is the your setups that you're more a little longer in. Well, the market at a lot of times um is and isn't responsive to fundamentals, and I mean the last 3 or 4 times we've had pullback, it's the stuff that gets killed is anyone burning cash. So it's good
Yeah.
to know. One of the notes I have here, there's we talk about blue chips, and I very clearly say that all stocks are shit. I mean that's the two that usually get here. But there's a big middle, and there's a big gap in that middle between the blue chips and the shittiest the shitty stocks. So it's good to identify, what the play is because the market is usually telling on who they're going to tax, and it's lately it's been companies that burn cash. That you're not getting that runway, so to speak, of we'll give you a year or two, or you can handle this. It's I want my money and I want it now. So being mindful of that kind of separates the things that should have decent range or that will come back and that won't find another level down. So just doing a
Yeah.
little bit of extra homework on my end gets kind of the difference here as opposed to just switching to puts or whatever. I mean it's when you pick a side like I have in my career and only trade the upside, you have to have a pivot, and the pivot's not going to be to puts. So I guess I look at it a little different than most people, but if you're just trying to trade shares, it's like really you got to get out of the cash burners. Um, the, the the hard part right now is we've had the thesis that the blue chips, especially the Mag Seven, aren't going to be good. So there's a middle ground in that from blue chips to shitty stocks that you have to find a place that's safe waters and
Yeah, that's where you end up in soda and beer, beer and
yeah, yeah.
tobacco. Yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah, so that's how
the
that.
dollar stores have been good, and
Right. Yeah.
there's stuff, yeah, stuff like that, and and then when you're in metals, materials, miners, all that stuff's been decent. But then when you're trying to play like, um, what's a good one? Yeah, like when you're trying to like get some Starbucks or get some PayPal or something like that, you just got to be mindful of the situation. Use the weekly. That usually helps too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, so, getting into some of these metals and materials, I'll just start with gold. I mean, up over 3,100. Uh, so the two things I said, like I thought gold was going to have a better year than Bitcoin, and I thought gold was going to go 3,400 plus. So far, so good on that. I mean, I think it definitely could. It's a little overheated. Maybe it could pull back or whatever. But setting up in the lower 3,000s and parking here for a while, um, would be fine and indicative of probably a move higher coming up. So yeah, so that just continues. Um, Still like silver a lot. Just 36 was sort of the number I had in mind a long time ago. Um, Probably setting up to test that and kind of go much higher. It's hard. I don't at this point, like I don't really don't have a top in mind for silver. I'm not trying to really be shot caller as far as that goes, but still just healthy chart, and thinks the miners will kind of benefit from that, and I just look for individual setups within those. So to me, I guess in short, it's still a really good environment for to find trades within gold and silver. That would be the look I see.
Yeah, you said I love the miners. It's just reasonable expectations,
Yeah.
and then kind of following the play and catching a little bit of level two for me on them. I have a pretty good basket there, so a lot of them it's not the first or second trade. So Our room's full of them. I mean, you really shouldn't have trouble finding and trading a miner from here. But I mean, if you're looking for 100% play in the next 3 months, it's just not available there. Um,
Yeah.
so understanding the expectations there, but safe sector currently, I love them. Glad we focused on them and have focused on them through the years.
Yeah, absolutely. And then natural gas still setting up really nicely on my end. Looking for that 5 to 7 area, and still prefer the oil gas combos. The leveraged ones. The problem you get is natural gas will pop up 3%, 4%, 2%, 2%, and then it'll have a day down 5%, and that is just completely normal. But those combo plays, if natural gas drops 4% on the day, those stocks aren't just going to get wrecked. The setup is sort of built to weather that kind of thing, and there's just something much bigger on the horizon. But if you're in boil or something, like, give you a really bad day, and then you got to decide what you want to cut, trim, whatever. So yeah, I don't really like to trade those as much, but yeah, overall, natural gas is still probably one of my favorites. I don't even think big story here has clean energy angle has really sort of hit the consciousness yet, but I do think that's on the horizon too.
Okay, a lot of those have taken money in just because their pullbacks are more substantial, and I'm greedy with the
Yeah,
stop loss right now, but um, I think they'll have their day again. I kind of like oil a little bit more currently, but that's just because of where the charts are.
yeah. No, I'm
And we
looking at
talked we
that.
talked about the stability in oil is not a bad thing for for the companies. Like, they can make money. I'm sure there's a cutoff, but 62, 72 doesn't really matter to them. They can make money in any environment. They need the stability to make that money, and I think we're going to see that over the second quarter kick in a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah. My latest Twitter thing was someone said you basically should never long Oxy. That was
Yeah. Okay.
that was right at the bottom that he said that, and it just uh kind of took off from there. So
What
so
what
yeah, I
what
do.
I didn't like about that guy's comment was, like, I think he tried to say Buffett was buying in the 50s. Buffett started buying in the 28s. like
Yeah,
like 30.
right,
That's
right.
when he started buying. Like, you're not even following the full story, guy. That's what stood out to me in that post.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, trying to dunk on Buffett never really works very
Yeah,
well
that's not a
anyway.
good thing to do.
And then yeah, copper.
Yeah, five.
Um, yeah, the sort of the chapter on copper that I've been on since it was in my bouncing around my 2 levels here. Um, we got it. We got the push through 5, and there's a lot going on in the world that could be really good for copper over the next couple years. So um, this definitely can keep going. I think that someone asked us in the room that I think that for the copper and aluminum stocks that we look at, just look for new setups around bits, and there's still plenty of meat on the bone within that sector. But yeah, I mean, it was just I mean, for me, I was happy to see a move I've talked about for a long time kind of play out, and so I'm just sort of reading it and mindful of what's next from here.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I usually trade steel when copper's bullish. Just works better for me. I think, I don't know why, but there's some correlation there, as opposed to trading this direct copper stocks. But it feels like they're waiting for some, you know, not necessarily government projects, but just big announcement with, the Build Back Better kind of thing coming in, or build the wall. I don't know, build something versus um, the government just cutting spending. I think that's the missed factor that a lot of people didn't have in their thesis coming into this administration is, like, they're gonna be more better with money and put it in the normal Republican strongholds. And now they really are trying to just cut money out. They haven't started spending anything yet, and at least
Yeah.
from a narrative standpoint, they haven't. So very interesting to me on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And all right, I'm gonna do it for a minute.
That's fine. I got something to say
Bitcoin.
about that this week.
Okay. um, yeah. So crypto. I mean, one thing that's playing out is the coins drying up. Seeing people try to revive the idea that NFTs are going to be something that's kind of grasping at straws for me. So I think, I mean, on my end, we're probably stuck here for a little while. The break out, most likely move out of it seems to be down. Me, the faster it moves down and the farther, the better, because the bounce will be pretty violent. So kind of just trading lightly and waiting on that. But I'm not building any big positions in crypto miners. That's for sure.
Got a lot of news around there from Sailor saying he's gonna burn. I forget they have a lot of keys to Bitcoin as a
Yeah, yeah.
as a thank you to the community, and you have Mara that just dropped a offering. They're gonna sell I think 2 billion in shares to buy Bitcoin. Um,
Right.
if, for me, even the bigger names, or the bigger players, I guess not names, the bigger players in the Bitcoin world, they can turn into conspiracy theorists too. So I think we're getting a little bit of that going on, and
Yeah,
see the
yeah.
Twitter guys following like all these Bitcoin charts, all these miners are in great spots. And I looked and I think I found one that I was like I agree with, where it is as far as a historical level goes, but no, I don't think it's time to be chasing miners. Maybe you could scout miners, um,
Yeah.
but you're not chasing them. Riot's the one that's the only one I have on a level at $7. Be 707. Um,
Mm.
but other than that, like I'm not. I'm not over here like let's run Bitcoin names to you yet. I just don't see that as something we're gonna do because I still think the overall coin is, we are now stuck in the 88 to 72 range. We're not really having a big movement in that range, and I don't I think you need a big move to get gas into the charts. So outside of the blue chip, which is coin, the one you have up, that can get news, and news will move it outside of the price of Bitcoin because there's a lot of dynamics going around there. I just don't like any of the action in that sector currently, and I do think it still has a downside. I think we kind of got to kill, a couple. We got to lose the E bonds and the SOSs like last cycle, before
Yeah.
we come back out of it. And um, the government buying it obviously isn't it. That whole narrative just isn't pushing Bitcoin. So we just need a reason and a catalyst, or
Right. So
it's a scalper's market, at least on share side.
so my experience with trading state government news has been in weed and gambling,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and there have been times where weed news within a state. I mean, especially a bigger state, um, sets up some trades, and it's kind of like, okay, that's what the flow is about. And it's a lot of pop and fade. I mean, we've been trading weed for a while. We know how that works. Uh, but I'm bringing that up to say, and gambling too. Gambling can move things.
Same thing. Yeah.
That to say, strategic Bitcoin reserve in Idaho news doesn't
Oh
do
yeah.
shit for it.
Yeah.
It's not. It just doesn't matter.
No.
But they pump out that they put out that news as if it should, with the rocket ship emoji and all of that. So no, I don't think that amounts to anything with these. And I called up Coin because I definitely think I said, and aligns with you about the 160s.
165. Yeah.
There you go. And I actually don't have a pivot there. And this is one of those situations where I two pivots back at your pivot in a pretty big zone. It's like 132 to 220, and the don't intentionally really ever set up my pivots like this. I have my own way of coming up with them. When I have a big, huge zone like this, stocks tend to move quickly through it, and Roku does the same exact thing. And so I like what Coin's doing in that respect, and really want to see how it reacts to that um, to your pivot within my larger pivots, and I can just sort of trade it along the way. So we're in a really good moment for Coin within a kind of a crappy moment for the whole sector. So that's mainly where my focus is. And then just MSTR, I just have more pivots along the way, but kind of the same trade going on with that one. So that's where I'm at. The individual miners or GME buying a bunch of Bitcoin and all that. Um, I don't. I think they're late to that. The Bitcoin strategy. They should have listened to Saylor a long time ago, and they'd be in much better. They'd be in much better shape. I mean, hell, if Tesla did it, like, they'd be the most valuable company in the world right now if they had done that. But um, yeah, those that kind of news doesn't really do much for me. I'm waiting for something sort of that seems really catastrophic within Bitcoin, and then all of a sudden, R is going to look good, and even CLSK and some of those, and then we'll go from there. But we're probably still a ways off from that.
Yeah, like I said, we need a few to go out of business first. I think that's part of the cycle.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
um, the good. I mean, just a good example, but like when we do hit that 165, it's not going to be like it's not a buy signal. It's a signal to get in there and watch level two, check the news, and reevaluate your thesis at that time and kind of hone in on it versus, oh, we're here and buy. And that goes with any level. um, it's a time to be active in the sector. It's good for the room. It's not time to just automatically buy. And sometimes you're going to have weakness on a level and you're going to get a better entry than that level, and sometimes you're not going to make it to that level. It's going to have strength off of it. So yeah, the 165 will just be for me. I don't want people putting in an alert to buy that 165, but I do want them to have an alert so they know, okay, I do need to start looking at my Bitcoin thesis around here or my coin thesis around here. Because yeah, your levels could totally come back too easily. I mean, it's not out of the picture um, from a TA
Yeah.
side. So yeah, just a good little tidbit there. Like pivots are great, but if you don't have things you do around a pivot besides rush in, your success rate isn't going to be as good as it needs to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And the let's see, last one I wanted to do. All right. So uranium,
Just dying.
yeah, yeah, it is, and I'm still just looking for. This one is sort of the opposite of a lot of commodities, where look for the kind of the flow setup first, and the way I see flow in a lot of uranium stocks is there's leaps that they might punt to 2027. So I'm kind of mindful of that. So I just don't have a big idea about some reversal here. Still a sector I focus on, and I think you're still good scaling around some levels, but yeah, just awaiting the situation to turn a bit. And it's gonna when it happens, it'll be fast. And again, with the way these futures work, you'll just kind of know about it after the fact as well.
Yeah, no, it's good to kind of go off of what I've been talking about here. I'm glad you actually brought the sector up because it's been on my mind. I just didn't know when to get it in, but I love the sector uranium. Um, SMR, NNE, Oklo are kind of the tickers that we found. Maybe even UROY a little bit, um, but I went into the bigger name first, which was OKLO, and when it dipped back into the low 20s here, I was like, all right, well, should we build a position? Well, going through my checks, it's not just buying off price. So going through my checks, well, let's look into this company a little bit. They don't have shit. Like they have
No.
nothing. It's an idea.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
literally just an
Yes. Yes.
idea. So I
Right.
mean, that stopped me from like, wait, there might be some more downside here. They don't even have a physical fucking building right now. So,
Uh, right. Yeah.
whereas
Like.
N and E has some things on the ground, UEC has some things on the ground already. So just a simple. I was wondering how to inject that into people because a lot of people probably don't know. Besides, isn't it Altman behind that? That's about as far as
Yeah.
they go. And if you look into that company a little bit, there there is not much there, and you need to let that be a bigger piece of your pie. It's a great example
Uh.
for that.
Yeah.
Make
Yeah.
sure
Yeah.
there's
The
some
other one
substance
is
to a company.
quantum computing. You
Yeah,
want them to have a quantum computer. You know. So like some of those tickers that they don't actually have one, right? INQ has equipment and facilities. Rigetti does too. But yeah, a couple of those other ones are like in the quantum consulting business at the moment. So yeah, you
you
always
can
do have to be careful
in a
with it.
bullish or uptrend market, you can trade ideas. You can't trade
Oh yeah,
ideas in a downtrend. You need some substance. I mean, that's
right.
if we're trying to put it simple, that's a great thing to write down right there. Is ideas work great in bull markets. People will buy into the idea, but when we're having pullback, it's you need some actual rubber hitting the road, or it's not gonna it could check down, and that is one of the better examples I've seen in a while because I was looking to get in to spread a little money around that sector, so I started doing my due diligence on it, and then well, let's look at book value. Well, they don't even have a book to value, so
Yeah, yep, absolutely. All right, so that's what I have there. Quick look at Spy,
let's do that.
and
Well, we got a little more than I anticipated. Um, Both in the gap up and the check back down. I mean, we definitely got a higher high this week. And if you go off 1 week, we got a lower low. If you go off this initial support down here, we're inside bar of this three candles. But I would Thursday. I said, I don't think we're gonna make the 50 here, which is 62 is what it was, 562. Um, and Friday totally took that away, even any opportunity of holding that level. So um, yeah, it didn't look strong during the week, and Friday really made it not look strong, made it look even weaker. Geopolitical stuff, that the stuff with Putin. Um, I don't like to make correlation. Like people know that bad stuff's gonna happen, but it fits. It fits why we had a bad sell off there. I mean, someone tried to
yeah,
assassinate a foreign leader. It's not going to be good no matter who it is for the market. And um, I think that not getting resolved is a big downtrend on the market because we're fighting a war on two fronts now with the trade war and the Ukraine situation, and um, escalation there is not good overall for the market. Um, and it's going to control the intraday moves or um, the activity more or less than the intraday moves. And last week was bare. I mean, there was a couple times where it was just like watching paint dry. There was like no action. Whereas the previous couple weeks of this downtrend, you were still getting respect off of like pre-market low, pre-market, or excuse me, yesterday low, pre-market low. You'd still get that bounce back middle channel. Um, just a cleaner form of weakness than you know where's everybody at. So not a good look going into the weekend and the week how that worked out with the gap up and then just the bleed out. I'm still waiting for something to kick in on your side as far as a bracket goes. If we had like
yeah.
545s and 575s right now, I'd be a little bit more inclined that we're gonna break out this box. But if not, I think we're kind of here for, again, I said a month, maybe a little over a month. So I'm still in that range that we're gonna build here. I did get an indicator on the weekly that I haven't got since the COVID. I got to go to the larger time frame. I haven't got a red down candle since the last 50 touch and then the COVID drop, which is way back here. So yeah, it doesn't look. It's not looking great from a TA side on SPY. Um,
So
yeah,
yeah, I've got a couple contracts that are relevant. So this 517 or 417, sorry, 417 550, the 417 540. So that way that this is set up, and it sort of picking up some steam on the ask side at 550, and then 540 kind of neutral. That look on that on the surface is that we're going to pull back into there and park there for a while. And the like, we split the 545, 547, something
yes,
like
that's
that.
what.
So that's kind of near term. I see this neutral contract, the sort of hot potato. They're passing back and forth. September 535, trading at $1,700, like $800 a couple weeks ago. That that's a pretty relevant contract too, and they just I would say they don't really have some big vision below that number. So I don't know where that number lines up with anything that we're doing. As far as upside goes, I have nothing. Like I have no calls to talk about. I just think you'll see some maybe retraces and bounces and things. But yeah, it seems like we're kind of destined to, at minimum, get into mid 540s somewhere.
I got 532 auto RTL on the daily chart from last like September, but it doesn't really translate much. What's it down here? Yeah, I mean, it's not out of the possibility, but I wouldn't call it, again. I wouldn't. It's coin 165 like we talked about. I wouldn't call it support.
Yeah.
If we're weak, that would be the to it not through it level. If you are playing swinging puts from here, not that you should be swinging spy puts or anything like that, but yeah. We're gonna be here for a while. It seems until we have a reason to flip bullish, and we're just back to that. There's a lot of uncertainty, whether it's positive or negative, however you look at it politically or or whatever, however you look at it. It's just uncertainty in general, and until that clears up, I think the move is down. It's just what it is.
Yep, and it's just one thing that translates to, like, you don't. I'm not looking to build positions in kind of the worst of the sector, just because they've been down more, like the AMDs of the world, that they're the worst, but of you know what I mean, like the mega cap, it's really not done well. I think instead, the leaders, Google's, the Apple's, the Nvidias, like you can start nibble a bit and buy some here and there, but just have your expectation be that you're probably going to average that down a bit, and I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, no, we talked about that a few sessions ago. The big names, Apple's, Costco, Cat, Meta, Nvidia
Yeah.
probably fits that. Yeah, they're not bad first, second buys. Don't plant your flag. Prepare to buy more. You'll win over time. That's more of an investor than a trader. That's
Yeah.
looking at the 3 to 5 year picture, and you have to have that outlook in it. And maybe you only buy quarterly. And plan on buying I mean, literally have the plan to buy, if this checks down to this level, I'm buying more. It just helps with your sizing first. It could drop to that level. Well, the plan that it will. Just plan that it will, and if it doesn't, then you still have a piece, and if it does, you'll be prepared to buy more. And never a bad strategy, in my opinion, for the people that are a little more longer. There's gonna be
Yeah.
good. I mean, we just had it with Groupon. Groupon ran 100% from your call, um, and it's still showing strength. There's gonna be things like that. And I think that's why we follow things like the Dollar Trees and the airlines and stuff like that, because they do have a.
Yeah. So when I mentioned in the room, and I'll close with this, like that I'm just seeing some weird names, like just these outliers, and so my read on that is that it's like whales get a little bit bored with bleed out, and they just look for a few gems, and that's what I do in this kind of market is just try to locate those front loads, size accordingly, and pretty well. And it's fun to catch some 30 to 60, 100% move while the market's bleeding out and looking like crap. That's just the work panning out. So there's going to be a couple like that too.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not going to be for me. It's not ever going to be from where you think it's going to come from. I mean, it's going to be your Cloves, your Pintresses, and Fubos
Yeah.
and stuff like that. It's going to be an obscure name that just you know um, fits for the whales and retail to both buy, and I think that's what you're looking for is the activity from both whales and retail in the same direction. Um,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
yeah, that like you said, that's when the work pays out. Um, that's why we look at 50 stocks and
Right, right.
come to different conclusions. I mean, if you look at our list last week, pretty much everything stayed inside the bar for the most part, and um, nothing to write home about. But that's what the work is for is finding stuff that's you know at least going to be active and going to have some stability to it. So um,
Yeah, and I mean I love those that even the ones that aren't doing a lot, but they also don't get you killed. The Pepsi, Humana, like
yeah,
um, some like that have been. It's definitely the right sector idea. Some banks here and there that.
not losing is just as important as winning. It really is.
Yeah, right. Foul off a couple pitches. Stay in the
Exactly.
stay in the box. Yep.
Exactly. Awesome. You ready to get to work?
Yeah, I'll grab a coffee and then we'll get going.
Perfect. Like and subscribe, people. Link somewhere.